Hi, welcome to the Salem Witch Hunt Daily Report for August 17th, 2024. I'm Josh Hutchinson. On August 17th, 1692, Cotton Mather wrote a letter of advice to Justice John Foster. And now I'd like to read that letter to you because I believe that there's very important material within. 17th August 1692. Sir, you would know whether I still retain my opinion about the horrible witchcrafts among us, and I acknowledge that I do. I just still think that when there is no further evidence against a person, but only this, that a specter in their shape does afflict a neighbor, that evidence is not enough to convict the person of witchcraft. That the devils have a natural power which makes them capable of exhibiting what shape they please, I suppose nobody doubts. And I have no absolute promise of God that they shall not exhibit mine. It is the opinion generally of all Protestant writers that the devil may thus abuse the innocent, yea, 'tis the confession of some popish ones. And our honorable judges are so eminent for their justice, wisdom, and goodness, that whatever their own particular sins may be, yet they will not proceed capitally against any upon a principle contested with great odds on the other side in the learned and godly world. Nevertheless, a very great use is to be made of the spectral impression upon the sufferers. They justly introduce and determine an inquiry into the circumstances of the person accused, and they strengthen other presumptions. When so much use is made of those things, I believe the use for which the great God intends them is made. And accordingly, you see that the excellent judges have had such an encouraging presence of God with them as that scarce any, if at all any, have been tried before them against whom God has not strangely sent in other and more humane and most convincing testimonies. If any persons have been condemned about whom any of the judges are not easy in their minds that the evidence against them has been satisfactory, it would certainly be for the glory of the whole transaction to give that person a reprieve. It would make all matters easier if at least bail were taken for people accused only by the invisible tormentors of the poor sufferers and not blemished by any further grounds of suspicion against them. The odd effects produced upon the sufferers by the look or touch of the accused are things wherein the devils may as much impose upon some harmless people as by their representation of their shapes. My notion of the matters is thus. A suspected and unlawful communion with a familiar spirit is the thing inquired after. The communion on the devil's part may be proved, while for aught I can say, the man may be innocent. The devil may impudently impose his communion upon some that care not for his company. But if the communion on the man's part be proved, then the business is done. I am suspicious lest the devil may at some time or other serve us a trick by his constancy for a long while in one way of dealing. We may find the devil using one constant course in 19 several actions, and yet he be too hard for us at last, if we thence make a rule to form an infallible judgment of a 20th. It is our singular happiness that we are blessed with judges who are aware of this danger. For my own part, if the holy God should permit such a terrible calamity to befall myself as that a spectre in my shape should so molest my neighborhood, as that they can have no quiet, although there should be no other evidence against me, I should very patiently submit unto a judgment of transportation, and all reasonable men would count our judges to act as they are like the fathers of the public in such a judgment. What if such a thing should be ordered for those whose guilt is more dubious and uncertain, whose presence thus perpetuates the miseries of our sufferers? They would cleanse the land of witchcrafts, and yet also prevent the shedding of innocent blood, whereof some are so apprehensive of hazard. If our judges want any good bottom to act thus upon, you know that besides the usual power of governors to relax many judgments of death, or general court can soon provide a law. Sir, you see the incoherency of my thought, but I hope you will also see some reasonableness in those thoughts. In the year 1645, a vast number of persons in the county of Suffolk were apprehended as guilty of witchcraft, whereof some confessed. The Parliament granted a special commission of Oyer and Terminer for the trial of those witches, in which commission there were a famous divine or two, Mr. Fairclough particularly inserted. That excellent man did preach 2 sermons to the court before his first sitting on the bench, wherein having first proved the existence of witches, he afterwards showed the evil of endeavoring the conviction of any upon defective evidence. The sermon had the effect that none were condemned who could be saved without an express breach of the law. And then, though 'twas possible some guilty did escape, yet the troubles of those places were, I think, extinguished. Our case is extraordinary, and so you and others will pardon the extraordinary liberty I take to address you on this occasion. But after all, I entreat you that whatever you do, you strengthen the hands of our honorable judges in the great work before them. They are persons for whom no man living has a greater veneration than, sir, your servant, Cotton Mather.